creating cultural awareness and understanding. This is Culture Clique. Culture Clique is written and produced by KQAL-FM on the campus of Winona State University.
Today on Culture Clique, we bring you part 2 of our series on a Minnesota music venue that is truly a hidden gem, the Oak Center General Store. The Oak Center General Store, as the name implies, is more than a music venue. It's also a general store, much like your grandparents might remember or like you might see in an old movie. It has also been home to a wood shop and has been the storefront for Earth and Path Organic Farms. The building has housed a general store and a community meeting room since its construction in 1913, and its doors were only closed for 6 short years in the 1970s. In other words, this place has been open and operating for nearly 110 years. If you aren't yet aware of the Oak Center General Store, then you are in for a treat. I'm Bill Stoneberg, and I hope that you enjoy this story of the Oak Center General Store as much as I enjoyed making it. Here's part 2 of our look into the Oak Center General Store, today on Culture Clique. When we left off last week, Stephen Schwen, proprietor and resident of the Oak Center General Store, was telling us how he got into hosting live music. Stephen had said that in the early days they were doing square dancing in the venue hall upstairs. His friend David convinced him to show movies on film checked out from the library and to have some square dances. Music was provided by the Sugar Hill String Band, and the first square dance was called by Bob Bovey and Gail Heil. Stephen told us how the old hippie back-to-the-land homesteader types came out of the hills to enjoy a night of square dancing with like-minded individuals. Then Stephen paused for a moment before saying,
And actually, that wasn't the first music. The first music was the first year after, my first...
It is here that the story of live music at the Oak Center takes a left turn. You see, Oak Center usually hosts folk music, and we will soon find out why. In recent years, the music that Oak Center hosts has been expanded to include many younger bluegrass, Americana, and alt-country acts from Minnesota. But it was a turn of events during one wild night in the late 70s that put Oak Center on the path to becoming exclusively folk and roots music for much of the past 40 years. Stephen tells the story best.
The first year that I met Nan, she walked in the door with this friend of Kate's who lived over in Wisconsin, who was doing a matchmaking thing. Because Nan was living in a land co-op that had 4 different entities in Wisconsin. So Chris brought her here, and it was a spring day, I think. And she just walked, and this is after my first winter here. When I'm living here pretty much by myself, and Chris says, can she come here and learn how to do inlay, how to do woodworking? And I said, why, sure. Because I'd been sleeping that whole first cold winter with no insulation in the building. Just a big Malamute who was very protective and wouldn't let anybody else in the bed, And I had 2 Hudson Bay blankets. I slept with my long underwear on and a stocking hat. And I'd get up in the morning, and if I had a glass of water sitting on an old fruit crate there, it would be frozen solid by morning. So, I was anxious to have somebody spend the winters with me.
Right, for sure. Oh, wow. So she walks in the door, and you guys had been doing this? You hadn't done the square dancing yet, because this is your first year here.
No, this was before the square dances. And I'm getting back, I'm kind of doing a little diversion retrospective to how we got back into the whole music thing. The power company and the phone company were threatening to shut us off. This is before any cold weather rules were ever made. And they're going to shut us off. And we had no income. I mean, the only income we had was the store was totally no income, really. And my woodworking hadn't reached a level where I was able to make enough to cover the payments and the bills. So utilities are threatening to cut us off, and a friend of ours who went to refrigeration school in Red Wing and came by to fix one of our refrigeration units, he said, well, you know what? I've got a band, and we're short on gigs, and you guys are short on money. Why don't we have a dance here, and we'll split the gate? You supply the place, we'll supply the music and the beer.
Oh, wow.
And they did supply the beer. It was like kegs of beer and plastic cups.
Right.
And the band was called Wild Oats. And the first people that walked in were all bikers in leather. And one of them says, wow, look at this place. There's nothing you can wreck.
Oh,
And, actually, we anticipated this might happen. So I had sheets of plywood screwed to the fronts of all of these shelves to protect our stereo and our dishes and everything else from damage. And he pounds on the front of the plywood, says, look, there's nothing you can wreck. And I'm thinking, oh, geez, this is not going to go well. Right. So they got upstairs, and the band's playing, and it's 1 a.m, and they run out of beer. And there's overturned plastic cups laying all over the floor, and the beer is 2 inches deep in the middle of that floor, of the dance floor upstairs, because, there's kind of a natural sag over these floor joists are 34 feet long, and so there's a slight sag to the middle of the floor, and the beer's all kind of run to the middle, and it's 2 inches deep. And these guys who showed up in leather, Harley boots and leather, leggings and stuff, are taking their shirts off and running and sliding in the beer, so it's splashing up on either side like the wake, on the side coming back from a water skier, just this spray. And so eventually, they're getting up on the stage, taking up a collection to get more beer.
Oh, no.
And I got up on the stage, and my first wife, Nan, and I, we were sleeping on the floor up there. We had mattresses out on the floor. And I got up on the stage and said, you know what? This is our home. This is our bedroom. We have to sleep on this floor. And no, that's it. We're done. Everybody go home.
Right.
And so, they all complain, and everybody's starting to leave. And we carried up wood shavings from the shop. I had been, building, furniture and cabinets in the shop, and dumped wood shavings and sawdust all over the floor to soak up the beer. Another friend who was still in high school at the time from down the road was helping shovel this sawdust up and carry it out to the barnyard to dump it in the barnyard. And we got it all cleaned up, and we went down the stairs, and here's a neighbor kid who was still in high school, passed out. He had puked on the couch upstairs already, and he's passed out in a snowbank outside and can't find his keys. He just lives a mile down the road, And we turned to go back up the stairs, and there's a couple making out on the stairs, and by this time it's 4 a.m. And we looked at each other and said, folk music.
Oh, wow. So folk music seemed to be a safer bet to get a little extra money to help with the bills. And it seemed to fit right in with Stephen's vision for the future.
My wife was a guitar player and used to get together with people and play when she was living down in Indiana, in Bloomington.
Okay.
And she was really into Bill Staines.
Okay.
And who just died, by the way.
Oh.
Bill just died 2 days ago.
Oh, wow.
The probably one of the longest running troubadours in the United States. He was from New Hampshire, was really well known for
so folk music, right?
Well, so we're doing folk music, and the first one she wanted to have was Bill Staines, but this friend of ours who got us steered towards doing music, David Hofschild. Yeah, I think that was David's last name. I forget his last name. David he brought us an album of Greg Brown's.
Oh, okay.
And, we liked it. So
Right.
David somehow got in touch with Greg Brown.
Mm-hmm.
This is back in 77, maybe.
Oh, wow.
This is the last century we're talking
So
about.
you got the place in 76, right?
Yeah.
And then
No, this
had
might
the
have been
band.
78.
so okay, but fairly quickly then.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. It was that first show. We split the gate with this band and got all the
biker
beer and
band,
sawdust
yeah.
cleaned up, and it paid those first 2 bills, and that's when
Okay.
we decided
Nice.
we were going to do folk music. We both go up to the Coffee House Extemp, above the New Riverside Cafe in Minneapolis.
Okay.
And Bill Staines was playing. Jerry Rao opened and did this Stan Rogers Field Behind the Plow song. And I said to Nan, I said, we got to get Jerry down. And Jerry came down mostly to open for Bill Staines whenever Bill was playing here.
Okay.
And Bill actually was the longest standing regular musician that we had here. He played
Okay.
here every year for 40 years.
Oh, wow.
I think we had to cancel
Cool.
once because of a snowstorm,
Uh-huh.
but he was the longest running musician we had play here. And Bill used to show up with his cowboy boots and his cowboy hat, and he was an incredibly versatile vocalist.
Right.
He was spot on with his what's that word for if you're able
Like
to
his
sing
ear? Perfect pitch.
perfect
maybe?
pitch. He was
Yeah.
Bill was
Yeah.
perfect pitch, and he played his guitar, had it strung backwards.
Oh, really?
So he was
Okay.
playing his guitar, and
it
it was
was
just
upside
because he had learned that
Right,
way
yeah,
or something.
yeah.
And he had this song about 18-wheelers where the line was, I grew up with my face on a road map. Because Nan and I had 3 kids. And the youngest was Jesse.
Okay.
He's still the youngest.
right.
And the kids always thought that he was singing, I threw up with my face in a road.
Oh, wow. Funny.
So one of those times when
Funny.
Bill was playing here, Jesse got his cowboy hat and his cowboy boots on, and he's just a little guy, and Bill's pretty tall. And Bill's doing the sound check and, loosening up his voice, and he's up on the stage, with the microphone, and he's tapping his foot and playing his guitar, and he's singing that 18-wheeler song. And here's Jesse, and I was up there, making sure that the mic was all adjusted at the right height and everything, and Jesse's right next to Bill, watching Bill's foot tap. And he's trying to tap his foot, in sync with Bill's foot. He's singing, I threw up with my face in the road map. It was, life has been magical here. And doing the folk forum, the concerts, really has brought a lot of magic through the doors.
From folk music to the folk forum. Like I said, the Oak Center General Store is much more than just a live music venue. At this point in the story has a wood shop, an organic farm, and is hosting folk music curated and presented by the Folk Forum. But as Stephen explains here, there's more to the Folk Forum than just folk music.
Actually, it was called Folk Forum, not because we were going to do folk music, but I was working with some people out of Millville that were doing the North Country Anvil. It was a regional magazine that, they quit printing probably 30 years ago, maybe.
Sure.
But there was a community of people that developed around the North Country Anvil and the stuff that was happening at Folk Forum. And,
Nice.
And we had been talking about the folk schools like Kentucky and down in the Carolinas and whatever. And so we called it Folk Forum. The intention was that this folk forum we were going to do was going to be a forum to kind of try and enlighten, to shed a little light on the current state of things in rural America, to enlighten people about treating the soil right. And about alternative economies and about, opposing, nuclear weapons and
different
warfare
ways to do things, right?
And just I don't want to sound egotistical, but to raise the level of consciousness a notch or two,
Right.
And so the first forums that we did weren't music except for that square dance, 2 square dances, and those first 2 folk musicians. We did workshops on renewable energy, how to build your own solar collectors, how to rebuild an old wind charger, wind machine.
Okay.
Grafting, organic farming, horse farming. We did all kinds of workshops. Holistic medicine, actually.
Wow.
When I quit med school, I went out to Pennsylvania to go to a homeopathic school and get certified as a homeopath. So I asked the person that was instructing at the school that I went to out there if he would come and do a workshop on homeopathy at Oak Center as part of our holistic medicine series. And he came all the way out he was teaching in Philadelphia. I ran into him when the National Institute of Homeopathy rented some space in a college down in Pennsylvania, in Millersburg, I think was the name of that town, Millersville or Millersburg. Rented part of a college campus to put us up while we were going to this homeopathic school. And he was actually a well-known banjo player and pedal steel guitar player. And in New York City at one time they called him the whiz kid of banjo.
Wow. So did he play here too? He did a workshop.
He did a homeopathic workshop on Friday night and a pedal steel banjo concert the next night.
Nice.
That was back when there was an instrument repair school and an energy school in Red Wing.
Okay.
And I think the instrument repair school is still there.
The folk forum here, you've had this going for probably around 45 years, I think, right?
Well, yeah, close.
Something like that.
We had something scheduled with Bill Staines on his regular schedule the last Sunday in February, which he had done consecutively every year for more than 40 years.
Oh, wow. For 2022? Here, February coming up? Okay. Wow.
And I was thinking when he called and said, can we do it again? I was thinking, gosh, I hope you can get up to the stage, because he's 74, and I'm only 71, and I have trouble getting up on that stage now. And
what are some of the? So you've mentioned him and Greg Brown. Like, who else are memorable people that have played here?
Well, Peter Strushko, who died this last year.
As I mentioned last week, the list of performers that have played the Oak Center General Store is long and quite impressive for such a little-known venue. In fact, I urge you to go to oakcentergeneralstore.com and check out the concert schedule page. I'm sure you'll find plenty of acts there that you recognize. But as you'll notice, the shows after 2019 drop off drastically. In fact, there's only been 1 or 2 shows per year. Since COVID hit, existence for the Oak Center General Store has been a bit of a struggle, with much needed repair on the greenhouses and much needed help with the farming and the live music shows. Well, let's just say things are tough. So what's the future of the Oak Center General Store hold? Well, for one thing, shows are coming back. Not that many, but they are coming back. Let's see what Steven has planned for the near future. Well, what about, are you guys going to, so you said you canceled a show recently with Eric Koskinen and David Huckfeld.
And what we talked about.
Yeah.
David's a really great guy. And when he played with Benson Ramsey in the Pines,
okay,
they would sell out weeks ahead of time.
Right.
I mean, his dad, Bo Ramsey, used to come here with Greg Brown.
Oh, cool.
And they would always sell out. And then Bo Ramsey married Greg Brown's daughter. And then Greg and Bo stopped playing together.
Oh, wow.
He's married my little girl, kind of thing. I'm just imagining the dynamics there.
Right.
But as far as concerts coming up in the future, I was talking with Eric. He was out in New York State with his mom.
Sure.
Yeah. And he wasn't sure he could make it back on the 17th. And so we're having this whole discussion. And Eric said, let's get in touch in January. Okay. I would rather do a show solo.
Okay.
And Eric is good solo or not.
Right.
You feel my love to the satellites with the moon and the stars and the traffic lights.
And oh boy, is he ever. On Saturday, April 23rd, 2022, Eric Koskinen did finally play the Oak Center General Store again. And of course, my partner and I were there to see it. Let me tell you, it was hands down one of the best shows I have ever seen anywhere by anyone. I'm almost half a century old, and I've seen a lot of shows. But seeing such good music by such fantastic musicians in such an amazing venue put this show way over the top. We were so very excited for Eric Koskinen back in 2020, and so very disappointed when it was canceled. We had waited 2 years for this show to happen, and in the meantime, we got to know Steven and the Oak Center General Store. The past 2 years have been quite a journey for all of us, and now it seemed that our journey with the Oak Center General Store had come full circle with the Eric Koskinen Show. And Steven has a pretty good story himself about how he met Eric Koskinen to begin with.
But David was the one that first got me connected with Eric.
Oh, okay.
The Pines were playing here, and David called up and said, we're going to have to cancel. Benson is sick.
Okay.
And I said, well, you got to find somebody else. And David said, I can't do it with anybody else. I need to do it with David or with Benson.
Right.
And I said, well, you got to find somebody else, because people thought the Pines were coming.
Yeah.
And it was a sold-out show, and there's no way to call everybody back and contact them and cancel on the afternoon of the show.
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
And he called me at noon
to
tell me Benson was sick and couldn't come. Oof. And I said, well, you got to find somebody else. And David says, there is this other guy. I know he's available, and he's better than us. So as people are pouring in for this sold-out Pines concert, and I told him right at the front desk, the Pines aren't going to be able to make it. Benson is sick, and they usually a lot of times they would look at each other. The people that came together as couples or a group would look at each other saying, well, what do you think? Because I offered to give them their money back. And Freckles, relax. Freckles. And I would always, conclude it with, and David said that they're better than the Pines. And people would kind of toss their heads back and forth and say, well, okay, we'll come. And as they were leaving after Eric did that show, people are leaving going, they are better than the Pines.
Wow.
And it was just Eric and what's the guy that plays guitar with him that I'm drawing a blank. Anyway, so Eric is, Eric and I had this discussion, what about David, and doesn't he need the money to go south, and I feel like I kind of owe David for introducing me to you, and Eric was struggling with that too, and he said, well, let's get in touch when David's in Arizona, and we'll schedule something with me solo.
So as of right now, Steven's taking it one show at a time, and we'll see where it goes. But it shouldn't be too tough to convince people to play here, because one thing's for certain, musicians tend to love this place.
And somebody else who wanted to play here, Charlie Parr, said he has, put out the word, I want to get back to Oak Center, and he always sold out, but that's been one thing we've been holding out on with Charlie is he always packs the house.
Oh, I bet, yeah.
I don't know if we can pack this place and have people feel comfortable.
Oh, right, yeah. Stephen's words echoed in my head as I left the store. I don't know if we can pack this place and have people feel comfortable. Like I said, if I were to describe my first time walking into the Oak Center General Store in 2 words, it's magic, is what I would say. My experience at the Oak Center General Store has been both wonderful and disheartening. Wonderful because it takes you back in time. It is a window into another world where the unchanging past collides with a possibility-filled future. And for the musicians that play here, well, like singer-songwriter John Smith said, it's like playing inside of a guitar. It is also disheartening because of the times that we're in. Times that would solicit a comment like, how do you pack the place and still feel comfortable? These days, the Oak Center General Store often sits empty except for the echoes and shadows of the life that has passed through it over the past century. This place needs that life. It needs to be packed with people sharing experiences of art, music, food, and most of all, community. What the Oak Center General Store really needs is community. Community is what we all need right now. Perhaps if we channel life into places like the Oak Center General Store, then they will channel life back into us. Thanks again to Stephen Schwen, owner of the Oak Center General Store, for joining us today on Culture Clique. To hear this episode again, or to listen to more episodes of Culture Clique and other KQAL original programming, find our podcast at kqal.org. For more information on the Oak Center General Store, go to oakcentergeneralstore.com. To keep up on all things Winona and the surrounding area, tune into Culture Clique Thursdays at 12:30 right here on 89.5 KQAL. I'm Bill Stoneberg, and we've been talking with Stephen Schwen, owner of the Oak Center General Store, on Culture Clique.
Creating cultural awareness and understanding. You've been listening to Culture Clique. Support for Culture Clique is made possible by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund. Culture Clique is produced by KQAL-FM on the campus of Winona State University. For more information, look us up on the web at kqal.org. And thanks for listening to Culture Clique.